The road cut through the deep forests of Sweden, stretching north through hours of darkness that felt older than the night itself. Tall pines stood close together on either side, their branches heavy with snow, absorbing sound, light, and movement. The headlights carved a narrow tunnel forward, while everything beyond faded into black. This part of Sweden always felt different at night. Not threatening, just quiet in a way that made you aware of your own thoughts. The forest didn't feel empty. It felt occupied by something patient. My name is Jonas. I've been driving trucks for most of my adult life. Long routes, night shifts, refrigerated trailers full of ordinary goods. It's not a glamorous job, but it's steady, predictable. I like knowing where I'm supposed to be and when. That night was no different. I was hauling packaged food toward a distribution center several hours away, a route I knew well enough that I could picture it even with my eyes closed. The curves, the long straight sections, the places where reception dropped without warning. Before leaving home, I had stood quietly in the hallway, pulling on my jacket while the house slept. My wife had turned over in bed, but didn't wake. Our youngest daughter was turning 8 in 2 days. I had promised her I would be home in time for her birthday. After this run, I was supposed to have a few days off. A small break, a chance to be present. The truck hummed steadily beneath me as I drove deeper into the forest. The radio crackled now and then with distant voices, other drivers, familiar accents, comments about light snow, cold patches, nothing serious. I answered when spoken to, kept my responses short. Then the silence returned. The road was mostly empty. Occasionally, headlights appeared ahead, passed, and disappeared behind me. Another trucker would call out, a brief exchange of routine words, and then they were gone. Everything felt normal. I stopped once for fuel and coffee, the way I always did. The station lights buzzed softly above me. No one else around. I stretched my legs, took a few deep breaths of cold air, then got back in the cab. Some time later, I noticed the clock. Not because it was wrong, just because it didn't seem to move. I glanced at it again after a long stretch of road, expecting a noticeable change. There was barely any difference. I told myself I hadn't been paying attention. Long nights blur together. Winter makes time feel thicker somehow. I turned the radio volume up slightly, letting the low murmur anchor me. Another truck passed going the opposite way. We exchanged greetings, talked briefly about the road conditions ahead. Normal, comforting. Then I passed the same reflective road sign again. Same bend. Same trees leaning slightly inward. Same shallow dip in the road just after. I slowed a little, scanning the surroundings. Snow lay undisturbed on the forest floor. No new tracks. No landmarks that stood out. I checked the GPS. It showed me moving forward exactly as expected. I laughed quietly to myself and took another sip of coffee. When I passed the same sign for the third time, the laughter didn't come. The radio grew quieter. Fewer voices now. Static filled the gaps where conversations should have been. When someone finally spoke, the words sounded distant, as if they had been said long ago. I tried to focus on the road, on keeping the truck centered, on the rhythm of the tires. The clock barely changed. I thought about my daughter again, about how excited she had been talking about her birthday, the cake she wanted, the small party she had planned in her head. A tightness formed in my chest. Not panic, just the slow realization that something was slipping out of alignment. I tried calling my wife. The call connected, but the sound was thin and distorted. Her voice was faint, but familiar. Hearing it grounded me for a moment. I told her I was running a bit late, that the drive felt longer than usual. I didn't say more than that. I didn't want to sound irrational. She reassured me, told me everything was fine, told me to drive safely and not push myself. When the call ended, the silence felt heavier than before. The forest pressed closer. The headlights reflected off the snow in the same pattern, over and over. I realized I had stopped checking the signs. I already knew what they would say. Finally, without fully understanding why, I did something I never do. I pulled over. I shut off the engine. The silence that followed was complete. No hum, no radio, just the ticking of cooling metal and the faint sound of wind moving through trees somewhere beyond the headlights. I sat there with my hands resting on the wheel, breathing slowly, listening, waiting. Nothing happened, and yet something felt like it had shifted. After a long while, I started the engine again. The road felt different, not brighter, not wider, just cooperative. The forest slowly began to thin. The trees stood farther apart. The road straightened. In the distance, a faint glow appeared on the horizon. City lights. Relief came quietly, like a weight being set down. The clock began to move the way it should have all along. I reached the distribution center a couple of hours later than planned. No one seemed concerned. Winter delays were common. Paperwork was signed. The trailer was unloaded. I slept for a few hours in the cab. Deep, dreamless sleep. The drive home passed without incident. Familiar stretches of road. Morning light filtering through low clouds. The forest gave way to open land, then towns I recognized. When I pulled into the driveway, my daughter ran out to meet me, her smile wide and untroubled. I was tired, later than expected, but I was home. We celebrated her birthday together. Life returned to its usual rhythm after that. Work, home, sleep. I never experienced anything like that drive again. Still, sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the world feels far away, I think about that stretch of road, about how easily routine can slip out of place. The North is full of places where distance behaves differently, where time feels less certain, where the road doesn't always let you pass on your own terms. I take breaks now when something feels off. I listen more closely to the quiet, because out there, in the dark, the road is always watching.